Okay. In the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a huge surge in conversation around the power of employee advocacy. Whether you called it employee generated content, whether you called it social sharing, there's all sorts of names for it. But in the end, it's this idea that you want to leverage the people who actually work there on your behalf to help tell more of your story to more people. Simple definition. Lots of ways to spin it, but let's keep it to that. More people talking about your story to more of an audience. All right. To make this happen, more so than employer branding, this is a process. This is a very slow build process. You do not simply, and I know plenty of people who sell packages and say, oh yeah, you install this and suddenly you get all this employee advocacy. Not really how that works. If people don't actually want to talk about your company, if they don't like your company, guess what? All the tools in the world will not help you. In fact, making it easier for people to tell their story when they don't like working there, that's bad. That's really, really bad. And I don't care how many controls you have over the system, you've effectively opened the floodgates to let people spew their bile in whatever capacity they feel the need. So the tool is never the answer. What the answer is one, establishing what that brand is, right? Getting them to get this is what the brand is and this is why you should care. And we'll talk about that in a second. But also not just giving them the approval to share that content, but also some guidance on what makes the most sense. The thing that kills employee advocacy is a lack of control, lack of guide rails, and which seems crazy, right? If you open the door and say whatever, people aren't going to do it. Why? Because they know if they say the wrong thing, there's a chance they're going to get in trouble. And it's not worth me risking my job for a funny tweet, right? If I don't know what's safe, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to assume everything's out of bounds. I'm going to assume that me being cute or funny or pithy or whatever is going to make somebody mad, and that's going to cost me. It's not worth it. Why would I do that? I'll throw that away. I keep that in my head. I'll complain about that at a party or something. That's not what social media is for. But if you have guidance, hey, please talk about this. Please talk about this. Please don't talk about this. Definitely don't talk about this. That guidance tells candidates where the guardrails are. It tells them, hey, please play in this space, but do not go over there. That's where the landmines are. I mean, that's a little morbid, but here we are. If you ever notice, if you have like a big field and you say, hey, kids, play in the field, they will play towards the center. But if you fence it, they will play at every square inch of that field. They will stand in the corner, a corner they never would have stood in if there wasn't a fence there, because they didn't know how far is too far away, how far is too close to the woods, what is the line, and generally they tend to cluster in the middle. So guide rails really increase adoption. It increases activity that you're looking for. At the same time, this is also a brand activity. This isn't a sheer volume activity. You don't just want people to talk for the sake of talking. This works once you've established the brand, once you've embedded in the job postings and the career site and the social content, and you started to engage the recruiters on using it, and maybe you've leveraged it in Glassdoor responses. This is when, okay, this is kind of towards the end, and as if this ever ends, but this is later stages to say, okay, by now, staff, you've noticed that when we talk about the company, we generally talk about working here in terms of this. It's about autonomy, it's about status, it's about performance, whatever it is. We think that is what we offer all of our employees. We think that is our employer brand. Kind of plant that flag in the sand in a public fashion. It can be in a series of dog and pony shows that you bring team to team to team. It can be some executive talking about it from the all hands meeting. Whatever. You're just kind of planting a flag saying, this is our brand. It doesn't have to be a big launch. It doesn't have to be a big to-do. It's simply, hey, we've done some thinking, we've done some consideration, and while there are many, many, many things that make this a great place to work, there are many, many reasons why people could work here. We think the thing that makes us unique and interesting is this. Maybe it's this and this. Who knows, right? Plant that flag. Once staff sees that flag, and when you ask them to advocate, you reinforce that flag. Hey, as you know, this is a company that cares about this and this. We'd love for you to talk more about how you see that in your day-to-day here at this company. We're going to ask you to leave some Glassdoor reviews, and you can automate that in your HRS system if you want. We're going to ask you to comment on social posts. Hey, we're hiring for someone in your team. Your hiring manager has made a short little video that we're embedding on LinkedIn, that we're tagging her in, that we're finding a way to kind of talking about this team. We would love it when we shared it on the corporate LinkedIn that you liked it, that you shared it, that you commented on it. We would like you to talk about this job in terms of autonomy or status or whatever it is, right? You give them guidance. There should also be a larger social media policy somewhere in the company that says, hey, when you talk about this, this is bad and you get in trouble for this. Some companies, sadly, it's things like salaries. I'm not into that. But if it's, hey, you know that if you say anything, like public companies especially, that's the worst, where they say, look, you can't say anything that might change people's perception of the stock price. Like you can't quietly announce, hey, been working on this super cool project that's going to radically change the world of blank. Can't wait to show it to y'all in a couple of weeks. That kind of tweet has a material impact on the stock price and people get sued for that fast, right? But that's okay. If you're public, that means you've got a legal and comms team who've probably set those guide rails up already. You need to leverage those and figure, okay, if they've created the box, what are the things inside the box we would like you to talk about? Take it a step further. If you're a little bigger, if you're a 500, 700,000 person company, you have regular inbound or regular onboarding programs, right? You hire people and you walk them through, this is what the company does, and go meet this, leader, and this is how it works, and this is how our culture works, and yada, yada, yada. One of the things that happens in that step is a lawyer showing up and scaring the crap out of everybody. This is why you're going to get sued. You can't say this. You don't ever say this. You're going to get fired if you do this. That's the lawyer's job. The lawyer's job is to scare the pants off of everybody. That's how they get paid, right? They're very crystal clear. Do not do these things. Problem is that tends to shut people up. Lawyers are more about do not do these things and less about please do these things. So if you have an onboarding project or a program, you need to find a way to insert yourself in some form or fashion after the lawyer. After the lawyers come and scared everybody, you walk in as Mr. and Mrs. Nice Guy and say, hey, I get that you're all scared and I know there's lots of things you can't say, but there is lots of things you still can say, and these are the things we'd like you to talk about. By the way, this is the brand. This is how we see ourselves. This is how it's important to us. If you feel the need to talk, we would love for you to share our jobs and share our posts and share the stuff we have on LinkedIn and Twitter that the corporate side talks about. If you'd like to comment, make sure you comment in this fashion, talk about these ideas. This is what we care about. That, after the lawyer has slammed the door shut, opens it back up a little bit. And that's what you need. That is the kind of advocacy you need. You also want to leverage your hiring managers because the advocacy is going to impact and support them most. The way LinkedIn works, and I'm just going to use LinkedIn as an example, but it's a good example in terms of leveraging both the algorithm and human behavior inside your company to make things happen. Let's say you have a hard to fill job. I get it. It's been sitting in that ATS. It's been open for too long, and you need to kind of give it some love. You've got a hiring manager who's starting to get really antsy and starting to take calls from third-party RPO companies, right? Things are getting bad. You don't want that. So what you do is you go to the hiring manager and say, look, I would like you to try something with me. I will write an interesting social post about this team and job. And maybe you have a 5-minute conversation with them. What's interesting about this company? What's interesting about this job? What's interesting about this thing? Why would someone take this job? What is the thing that that person did in the previous life that makes them really good at this job that will prepare them for this role? Get a good tidbit. Maybe get a quote. Maybe get a story. And then say, look, I got my pocket supercomputer. Can you tell me blah, 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 blah? Can you, just kind of talk about what this job is like and talk about what this team is like and what the culture is like, 60 seconds tops. And they say, okay, blah, 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 blah. And, she talks about the job and that's great. And you take your phone and you go back to your office and you download it and you kind of trim the edges and that point where they kind of went, oh, wait, what was I saying? Wait, can I change that? And you trim that out, you stick it together and you upload it to LinkedIn and you put your well-written copy that you got your interview for and you stuck it there. You tag the hiring manager. You say, hey, Susan blah, blah, blah is hiring this thing, or hear from Susan blah, blah, talking about her company. And you put the @ in front of it so you can actually tag that person. And you say, Susan, we're about to post this on LinkedIn channel, which means we're going to have a couple thousand people potentially see it. It's not how it works. If you have a couple thousand followers, that's not how LinkedIn works. Give me a second. What I'd like you to do is the second I publish this thing, I want you to like it, and I want you to share it, and I want you to comment on it, and then I want you to email your team immediately, and I want you to email everybody else who owes you a favor in this company immediately and say, please like, comment, and share on this post. Because what LinkedIn does is it says, I don't know if this post is good or bad. I'm going to give it 90 to 120 minutes to decide that people like it. I'm going to seed it to a small sampling of people. And if they like it, if I get enough audience engagement, I'm going to say, ooh, this must be a good post. And I'm going to roll it out to a wider audience. That's how you game the LinkedIn algorithm. That's how you leverage your staff and the advocacy of it to support those messages and get it a wider audience. I have seen it happens, and it's amazing. When it all clicks, when you get it right, when the stars align just the right way, because this isn't a guarantee, but when you do it right, I've had a kind of I'm thinking a very particular person in particular who is soft-spoken, not very active on social, super nice guy, super good data scientist, doesn't really kind of chit-chat, is not a loudmouth on social. Made a quick video. They said something. I grabbed the quote. They told me about this job. I posted the video. I posted the quote. I tagged them. I did everything I just described. I said, hey, you got to get everybody on your team to like and quote and follow this thing or whatever. And you get everybody who jump on Slack on these teams and ask people to like this as soon as they possibly can. I came back 24 hours later. They had more than 100 people ask to connect with that hiring manager. More than 100. This was, he went, I've never had anything like this. And you could even see in LinkedIn, he did a little screen grab of his LinkedIn and he goes, and I'm like, I'm no data scientist. I don't know anything about math, but that seems good. He goes, that's amazing. We got 10,000 views of that video. It was nuts for a tiny little phone video. It works. Getting your employees to be advocates for what you're saying, for helping them understand what you're trying to get them to talk about, creates guide rails. It allows and supports and sparks that engagement, and they talk about that stuff, and it drives the things you're trying to drive. That is just the beginning. There's a million ways to take your advocacy. I can't tell you all the ways because there's too many, but you're smart and you're going to figure a bunch out. But look at what you're talking about here. Look at what marketing is doing and what comms and how you can help them kind of leverage the human face of what you're doing to say, hey, look, we all talk about autonomy to make great decisions. Can we do a post that says that autonomy to make great decisions leads to this great product? It's a way of supporting them and having them support you. That's a kind of advocacy right there. So creating those connections, creating those engagements is really kind of how your brand, which up to this point has been kind of small and contained and very local to you and your recruiters, is suddenly going to get open and thrown around and tossed around and going to be seen by a lot more people. And that's the power of employer brand. It may help to build a little guide, a one-pager, a one-slider kind of thing that says, this is our brand, this is what we talk about. Do talk about this, don't talk about this. That might help kind of further your goals. You can throw that slide into everybody else's deck. So when you dog and pony or people do a stand-up meeting or a all-team meeting once every 2 weeks, every 4 weeks or whatever it is, that gets in and everybody starts to see that stuff. Tiny little ways that you're going to encourage people to do it. But it really focuses on, this is the brand, this is what you're allowed to do, this is what you're not allowed to do, and then give them opportunities to advocate. That's the focus. Okay. It's a lot. I've been talking a while. This is a lot of stuff. You're welcome. Hopefully you're getting a lot of value out of this class. But here's where it all starts to come together. You've learned all about these projects. You've learned all about these programs and ideas. Now our next video is going to focus on what is the calendar? What is the 12-week sprint you need to take starting today on how to make this brand work? That's what we're going to talk about in the next video.